You are listening to Leaders and Legends, a podcast presented by Veteran Strategies, an Indiana-based public relations enterprise, and federally certified veteran-owned small business. I'm your host, Robert Bain, along with our producer, Chris Spangle. Our podcast is featured on the All Indiana Podcast Network in partnership with Wish TV. You may find Leaders and Legends at allindianapodcastnetwork.com. Thinking of starting a podcast or need to host a public meeting? Let Leaders and Legends LLC be your partner as you look for new ways to communicate your message. Please contact us at chris@leadersandlegends.net. As always, all our podcast interviews are dedicated to the legacy and generosity of P.E. McAllister. Our guest today, this is his second appearance on the podcast. First time he came on was via Zoom a few years ago. I never met him, but was told by the immortal Ed Tracy that I must speak with him. And what has become of that is a friendship. I just can't even tell you how much I admire and adore this guy. And it is Jim Voyles. We are here to discuss his book, All Rise, My Life and Trials with the Famous, the Infamous, and the Misunderstood. We are joined by his co-author, Mark. So we know what the name of Voyles is so successful, he named his house, which is one of my favorite things. Jim?
Well, I don't know about that. It's not one of my wife's favorite names.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast again. I love seeing you.
Thanks for asking us.
First question I have to ask is, I got kicked off this book project somehow. What the hell happened?
I was looking for a real author.
You were?
Yeah.
Someone who could read and write?
Yeah.
Not an IPS grad?
No. I want somebody from the East, cultured. Thoughtful.
Exactly. Speaking of Ed Tracy.
Yeah.
I saw the book when you told me it was coming out, and you sent me a copy, and I'm very grateful for you to sign it. And I saw that it had been co-authored by someone with a racing background, Mark, and I just couldn't think of a more perfect pairing.
You know, it's funny, Robert, that when we first sat down at St. Elmo's over 2 years ago to discuss this book, I had read some books that he had written, one in which involved one of my former clients, Bill Simpson, people I knew in racing, Parnelli Jones, Tony Stewart, a former client. And so I thought this might be a good pair to work on because he and I both loved the same or had the same passion. He didn't have the knowledge about what I do, but like I've told other people, my uncle, George Ober, who is my mentor in the practice of law, jazz music, and automobile racing, had collected scrapbooks for years about his practice. He was the judge in Speedway, and then he was the attorney for the United States Auto Club, started the United States Auto Club with Mr. Holman and others. And so Mark and I went to dinner, and we decided to do the project. From my perspective, it was to do a book, or at least put together a series of, I don't know whether you'd say a book at the time, but more chapters of what I've done.
Sure.
The 6 kids and my 27 grandkids could look back and say, here, what did he do? And so now they know what I've done. And so we decided to go ahead and make it a book. I didn't want to publish it, but the publisher, Coastal 181, who were friends and colleagues of Mark's, suggested that we publish it. And so that's kind of how it all happened. But the original thought was to just do it for my family and do it with somebody who had the knowledge of motorsports that I at least enjoyed. And so it was a perfect match for me.
Mark, you want to pick up on that? How long have you known Mr. Voyles, and what drew you to this project?
Well, I moved out here from New England in 1997, and we probably have known each other peripherally since then. We had a lot of mutual friends, got to know each other better over the years at the Speedway. largely through Bill Simpson, but also through other shared friends. And what drew me to it was, if you're curious at all, you sort of have to be curious about criminal defense work, the investigative processes involved in it. And, I'd hear about this case or that case that Jim was involved in. And I would never ask him, if we were just standing around at the racetrack, because you don't want to ask somebody their private business. But as we got first talking about this project, it interested me because I got kind of skipping through the law books that Jim has, the case books. And there are some cases that just jumped out to me as fascinating, and you hope that you never need a criminal defense attorney, but the reality is a lot of people do. And you'd hope to have somebody who's thorough and good at what they do. And just looking back at Jim's history was amazing to me.
Which part of the book was the most fun to write, to reminisce, to construct for you, Jim?
Well, I think it had two parts, really. The first part of my life, when I began the practice, my thoughts about the practice, my attempt to explain what I do to my kids and ultimately to people who read it, and then really reliving a lot of wonderful memories from motorsports. So it kind of became two parts of a great opportunity for me.
How different was this book to write than anything else you've done, or was it you already have a nice little pathway?
Yeah, they're kind of, if you're writing autobiographies with people, the process is sort of the same. With Jim, there were more unknowns for me. I wasn't in any way a student of the legal world, and luckily I've never needed his services, so that was good. But I think the good thing about the shared racing relationship was, if we ever needed to relax a little bit during the process, we could just start telling a story about the 1973 Indy 500 or the 1981 Indy 500. So it was
Those
great.
are two controversial years.
Yeah,
you just pulled out of your
pulled them out of my hat.
Zach, I'm gonna specifically ask you about 81 in just a second. The 81 race, the law. Let's start there. A lot of folks they know when they're young what they want to do. Now, they may not do it, but you talk to cops and teachers and firemen and stuff like that, maybe lawyers too, and a lot of them are like, oh, I've always wanted to be X, or my dad was X, so I always wanted to be X, or my mom. Was that the case with you? How did you stride into the legal profession?
Well, I think that's pretty accurate because my father, after World War II, came back to Indianapolis. We spent a year down in Louisville when I was in first grade, where he worked for his father in the insurance business. And I don't think he really liked that business at the time, so he moved back to Indianapolis. I became a student at IPS School 70 up there off 46 and Central. And he went back to law school. He went to law school, but he didn't finish. He got called back into the Army, the Selective Service Division, which was a branch of the U.S. Army at that time, or division. And so he worked in Chicago. We lived here, my mom and I. And then when my sister was born, they decided to move 5th Army headquarters, and he decided it was easier for us to commute from Michigan City than it was from Indianapolis. So we moved to Michigan City through my freshman year in high school, and then 5th Army headquarters moved to Springfield, Illinois. So we moved to Springfield, Illinois, where I went to high school, graduated from high school, went to college in Illinois, and then decided to come back to go to law school because I had firmly indoctrinated into me at that point that I wanted to be a lawyer, because my uncle, George Ober, who was actively involved in motorsports, was a lawyer. And so I came back to Indianapolis, went to law school, and then after I graduated, I immediately joined his firm, and I've been there for 57 years. So I haven't moved.
You grew up at a time, and we're going to maybe switch back a little bit from between law and racing, but man, when you grew up in the 50s and that sort of era, there were just little tracks everywhere. You
Yeah,
talk about that in the book, and I thought it was really fascinating at how did the racing bug hit you at the same time? You mentioned your uncle who had a foot in both
there
worlds.
was no. I saw my first 500 in 1949 when we were living in Indianapolis because it was on Channel 6. It was the first time it had ever been televised live, and then I didn't see the next live race I saw was in 1953. We were living in Michigan City, and my dad brought me down here for the race. But in terms of my association with motorsports, it's really primarily directed toward my uncle. My dad liked racing, but he wasn't committed to it like my uncle was, not only emotionally, but legally. He was part of the starting of the United States Auto Club. Mr. Holman, and a group of other men went to, after AAA decided to stop sponsoring racing in this country, they went to Detroit Athletic Club in the fall and December time frame of 1955 and started USAC. So it was first operation was January of 1956. So he was intimately involved, and that made me very interested in what he was doing, and particularly the sport that he was following. I started following routinely, and I've gone to all kinds of little tracks all over Lincoln, Illinois, Springfield, Illinois, Jacksonville, Illinois, just wherever, Putnamville. Mark and I have been there together. I mean, just every place that I could watch racing, I went to.
First favorite driver?
My first favorite driver was probably Jimmy Bryan before he died in a tragic accident at Langhorne, Pennsylvania that he shouldn't have been driving in. I then moved to the 1965 500 when Jimmy Clark won. I always was an admirer of that car and him. Foyt was always there to have me watch the way he handled his car on dirt and asphalt, and you could drive anything and everything. And now I have an affiliation with Chip Ganassi, and all three of his drivers, Alex Palou, Scott Dixon, and Kiffin Simpson, are all terrific because the talent now is sensational in the IndyCar series.
Ask you the same question that I got to ask Paul Page, relatively knowledgeable about the racing world and the Indianapolis 500. Sure. I made a statement and then said, correct this statement. And weigh in too, please, Mark. The statement is, A.J. Foyt is the greatest legend in the history of the Indianapolis 500, but Rick Mears is the best driver in the history of the Indianapolis 500, to which Paul Page replied, that's absolutely correct. Would you two like to weigh in?
I really admired Rick Mears, and he was a wonderful driver, but I guess the mystique of what Foyt could do besides just the Indianapolis 500, he was the complete driver, much like Tony Stewart is the complete driver. You could put those two men in any kind of vehicle, and you would have a chance to win if it was a very decent car. And I'm talking dirt, road course, no matter where you put them, they would have an opportunity to be in the winner's circle. Mears, unfortunately, not that way because he didn't have that kind of background. He came up from driving cars in the desert and got an opportunity to drive for Roger Penske and was sensational at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So you're talking about comparing two people who have different backgrounds, different abilities. And so overall, I would say Foyt comes out ahead for me only because he can do everything. Mears was a stellar driver at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and other tracks, but he didn't have that, what I would call mystique that Foyt has.
Mark?
And I think in AJ's era, when you raced for money, you wanted to drive everything you could. There weren't necessarily any salaries or big dollar contracts that tied drivers to a particular owner or sponsor for long periods of time. So guys like AJ and Mario Andretti and that whole era, Bobby Unser, Al Unser, they jumped around to earn their livings in different forms of racing. So, if the Indy cars weren't racing on a certain weekend, they went and drove a NASCAR stock car race or a dirt track sprint car. But I'd go back even before that if you just want to talk about excellence. Jim talks about his first live 500 being in 1953. We got Bill Vukovich was leading in 52 with 8 laps to go. The steering fails. He wins in 53 and 54, and he's leading the race in 55 when he gets killed. So, here's a guy that was only in the race for 5 years, only in really competitive equipment for the last 4. And here's a guy that darn near could have won. You never know what would have happened, but he could have won 4 in a row. And had that happened, it wouldn't have been as big a deal when AJ won 4 or when Al Unser won 4 or later Rick Mears won 4. It's hard to compare drivers in different eras. It's almost like athletes. The training is different. The backgrounds are different. But the great part is we can argue about it forever.
Am I remembering correctly? The Associated Press named Mario Andretti the driver of the 20th century?
Yeah, driver of the century. And I
you want to talk about that?
There was some pushback from that from certain people in and around Houston, Texas. But if you want to nominate an American driver for driver of the century, it's going to be Foyt or Andretti. There's no doubt. There might have been other guys as talented, maybe not, but the accomplishments that those guys had. AJ did a couple of things that Mario didn't. Mario did a couple of things that AJ didn't, and they did a lot in common. So that's another great argument you can have week after week for the rest of your life.
I should note that my uncle, Bob Dorn, was a pit crewman for A.J. Foyt in 1961 when he won his first 500. He went on to be a pit crewman for Johnny Rutherford. And Johnny Rutherford's been a guest on this podcast, and my uncle Bob Dorn, who passed away early this year, was friends with both Jim Voyles and Mark Bourcier.
Yeah, we knew Bob very well.
Bob was one of the great characters. We used to run into him. Robin Miller used to have a bunch of guys to lunch every Friday at Charlie Brown's in Speedway. And Bob wasn't always part of that group, but he might be walking through the building, having dinner with somebody or lunch with somebody else, and he'd stop over at the table for a little while, and we'd all chat.
I grew up with racing because of my uncle, right? It was just a big deal. And we were all Foyt psychotic fans, because he was the guy. How does racing get in your blood? It's like being pregnant. You're either all in or you just kind of look at it from afar. One of the things that I got to talk to Mark Miles and Doug Bowles about when they were on the podcast is the phenomenal job they have done of reigniting interest in the 500 among younger people. My son is 25. He's been to multiple races. He loves everything about it. What is it about racing? Is it the drivers? Is it the speed, the danger that makes you fall in love with it so, Jim?
I think all of those factors. I've got 6 kids. I'd say all of them are motorsports fans. But when you start going away from that and looking at their children, they have other interests. A lot of them have interests now in football, soccer, baseball, basketball. They'll go to the 500 and they'll enjoy things, but I think it's like anything else. Either you become passionate about a particular sport, and once that passion is created, then that's kind of what you want to do and you want to see or be a part of. So
I think what made it easier years ago is there were, anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 weekly operating short tracks in this country, little small ovals in different corners of each state. And there was something nearby wherever you were from. There are fewer now because, land prices have made it prohibitive to run a place once a week when you could maybe sell it and it could be a, warehouse property or something. But there are times when I wonder, what do the kids do now who the ones who discovered racing at my age, when I was a teenager back in Connecticut, the local track I went to closed up in 1981. So I wonder what the teenagers there now get into. Are the restless kids that you see in a department store parking lot with skateboards? Are they the kid that I was who just couldn't wait to get to the racetrack every week? I don't know. It was more accessible then, but you're right about one thing. When it gets into your blood, it gets way deep.
You are listening to the Leaders and Legends podcast, sponsored by or presented by Veteran Strategies. We are discussing the new book, and it is a beautiful book. It is heavy and is beautifully bound, and the pictures are wonderful. All Rise.
Content?
Do what?
What about the content?
Well, we're going to thank Mark for that.
All I did was write it down. He had to live it.
We're discussing with Jim Voyles and his co-author, Mark Bourcier, the book, All Rise, My Life and Trials with the Famous, the Infamous, and the Misunderstood. Staying with racing for just a second. Jim, how many 500s have you seen?
71.
I saw that number in the book. I couldn't believe it was that many.
My wife's seen 73. She's got me by 2.
Really?
Yeah.
One of my questions is just Joan, ? Let me expand. Where would you be without Joan Parsons' presence?
Well, I'd
in
still
your
be a
life?
lawyer, but I probably wouldn't have the life I've had. She's been a wonderful part of my life. She's raised our collective Brady Bunch, and she's a wonderful asset to me. She's still extremely beautiful and charming and
Sweet as pie. She's
very
so sweet.
Very sweet. She counters my part in personality.
True or false? You have lost more arguments to her than all the other lawyers you've met combined.
That's probably absolutely accurate. Absolutely right. But yeah, she's and the other part of it, because of her interest in motorsports and she grew up in it, it made it a lot easier that she could accept my passion. She has a passion for cars, so when I got into collecting automobiles, she was 100% behind me. I would always kind of talk to her before I bought anything, and she'd be a critic about if that's the great car for us.
Mm-hmm.
But she's been wonderful. Yeah.
We're going to get to your car collection in a little bit.
Okay.
And I need to send a copy of this podcast to Chris McAllister because I know how much you
it's
admire
very
his.
funny. I just saw Chris at lunch when I was having lunch with former Governor Daniels. We were at the club together, the athletic club, or the Columbia Club now.
Right.
But I have to acknowledge it's the other club in town.
Not the athletic club.
Not the athletic club. But anyway, I saw Chris, and what a motorsports guy he is. And I've been to a number of car shows where his Lotuses and cars have won Best of Show. And yeah, what a terrific ambassador for motorsports Chris is.
He's a bit of a fan of Jimmy Clark.
Very much so. Very much so. Yeah, has one of Clark's wonderful Lotuses. He had Denny Holmes' car, Can-Am car. I mean, yeah, Chris he's a real collector. I'm an amateur compared to Chris.
Well, we love the McAllister family on the podcast, starting with PE, the greatest.
Yeah.
How many 500s have you seen?
Everyone since 96. So I haven't added that up. Although I did miss one that Jim went to, and that was the year of the COVID 500.
COVID one?
I didn't even apply for credentials that year, only because I knew that there was going to be some restrictions on where you could go. You couldn't have access to the garage area like you would in an ordinary race. And much as I like a lot of my friends in the media center, just the idea of hanging out there all day talking to them wasn't going to cut it. You want to get out and see your friends and the competitors and so on. But I've got a ways to go before I catch up to Jim's 71 races, that's for sure.
I love that Joan's been to 73. That's amazing. Favorite 500 moment, Mr. Voyles?
I'd sit on the thing with Scott Swan. Every one of them has been a wonderful experience for me. Last year's, where I got to go on the podium after Alex Palou won the 500, was probably the highlight. I've been around the other winners before, but I never have gotten the opportunity to go up on the platform that Roger built at the Speedway, because the old victory circle used to be at the end of, before you went into turn one, and I watched a lot of victories there, but the platform is a different level.
How'd you get up there?
I walked. No, right after the race, and Alex had won the race, Joan and I headed from our seats in turn one to the platform. And when I was there, I was invited to come up. And so I went up. And as the book shows, I got my picture taken with Alex because we've become friends over the years. And it was a wonderful experience.
First race I ever went to, and we were sitting on the inside first turn, was the Mears John Cock showdown in 82. He cut him off. John Cock cut Mears off right in front of us. Yeah. And it's first I was 14 or whatever. A lot had been written about the 500. Some of it always not necessarily complimentary. And we'll leave the guy from Los Angeles out of this for just a second.
Jim Murray.
Jim Murray.
Well, he had an interesting perspective. You know, he and Bob Collins, who was our sports editor here, I think were colleagues and friends. And I think Bob had a more Indianapolis view about the 500. And I think Murray had more of that California approach to it. Mark is probably better at assessing writers than myself, but I always admired their 2 points of view.
I know Jim Murray is a non-racing guy. The first couple of times he was here, he saw some tragedy up close.
73 races.
Yeah, and you could imagine how that would color somebody's outlook on the sport if that's all they ever saw. As bad as it was, I think people who are immersed in racing realize that thankfully now it's a smaller part of it, but that's always been a part of it. The danger isn't I don't think the danger is the pull that draws fans in, but I think there is something to the idea that you're watching people do something that most people wouldn't be able or willing to do. And that was more true back then, I think, because of the increased danger level. But Jim Murray was obviously a brilliant writer. I just think he had that early almost revulsion when he saw these things happen that he never imagined he was going to come here and see happen.
Have you gotten close to some of the drivers we've lost in the last 50 plus years, Jim?
Yeah, in 1971, I walked in to the track with Jim Malloy, and he was dead that weekend. I had to go to Methodist and deal with that. Friends of mine, Denny Zahn, Dave Wilhoit, and I, who were all close to Jim, we took his car back to Denver to attend the funeral. So yeah, this is a very tough sport. I mean, I tell people it's not bowling.
Yeah. And
so you have to be prepared to, and when I grew up, and Mark knows this to be absolutely accurate, many of the field that started in the 5,500 were not there the next year because of their love for what they did and the opportunity to race in multiple areas. And every time you race, it's the danger, particularly on dirt. And a lot of those great drivers in that era, as I said, my first hero, Jimmy Bryan, got killed at first lap, first turn in Langhorne. And so you kind of have to prepare yourself for the tragedy that's right on the other side. It's a two-headed coin. Yeah. You know, there's a victory on one side and there's death on the other, unfortunately.
Do you have a favorite racing movie?
My wife does, To Please a Lady, which was about her father, the winner of the 5,500. We have the poster from that movie in our basement that where Clark Gable played. An interesting story about that. Clark Gable played the lead in that, and we have a picture in our garage with Clark sitting with Mr. Holman as the cars go into the first turn of the speedway. I think it's Bill Holland in the Blue Crown car. And then Mr. Holman had purchased, apparently, when Mr. Gable came to town, a 1950 Jaguar XK120 dark blue for Mr. Gable to drive when he was here. And that car was in the museum in the basement. And after Mrs. Holman died, Tony George got that car, and I think Tony is having it reconditioned. Absolutely gorgeous car. I've got a 56 XK140. They started out with the 120, then the 140, then the 150, which was the last of the those kind of cars before they became the XKEs. So, but that car Tony has, and was for Mr. Gable.
Just real quick, the new Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum.
Spectacular.
You were talking about Chris McAllister a few minutes ago, but
yeah, Joan and I made a large contribution to the museum. We've been Joe Hale, who was the president of the museum during the reconstruction and development of it, put together a wonderful museum that everybody in the city who is interested in motorsports, or any if you're not, your children should see it. I mean, it rivals pretty much everything in the country on motorsports.
Mark, what's your favorite racing movie?
I would echo what Jim said. I mean, To Please the Lady is fantastic. There's also a racing movie from roughly the same era called The Big Wheel that Mickey Rooney was in, where he kind of played a down on his luck midget racing driver and then Indianapolis 500 driver. They're both very campy in that, 40s, 50s sort of way that movies were made. But there's enough actual footage from different events, and there are identifiable things you can see in those characters where you know that they patterned them after different drivers. And I watch both of them every chance I get.
Probably one of the most famous gearheads, racing lovers who's come out of the Hoosier State, about 5 miles south of here in Beech Grove, is Steve McQueen. Did you ever follow any of his exploits? Did you ever meet him, Jim?
I never met him. I met his wife, one of his former wives, and it was at Pebble Beach during the Concours d'Elegance, and she had a book. She was participating with him in his last movie before he died.
Yeah, The Bounty.
Yeah.
Or The Hunter. The Hunter is what it was. The Hunter, yeah.
And she was selling books, and we bought the book, and we got a chance to meet with her and talk to her. Yeah, I loved his movies. I have a movie that was one of my favorite movies that McQueen made, involved a 1965 Mustang GT green that was in the chase in San Francisco, and I've got a replica of that car. That Ford
of the Bullet car?
Yeah, the Ford Motor Company in 2008 put out a line of Bullet cars. They built 7,500, and as soon as I saw that it was out for sale, I grabbed one through Paul Harvey Ford, who was a client of our firm, and I told him, I said, I got to have that car, and I've got it now. So,
when's the last time you went to a public place and someone didn't yell, "Hey, Jim"?
Oh, I can go to a lot of public places. Nobody knows who in the heck I am.
Not in this city or state.
Oh, yeah, can. Yeah, I can.
I made the mistake of going Shapiro's with him one time. We could barely get through the line.
I can only imagine.
You have this, it's not a reputation. It's not an aura. It's who you are of being helpful. What does it mean to you to be helpful to someone? Not as an attorney, not as a person of influence, but just as Jim, because people come to you for help and guidance.
Well, I don't know. I suppose it's characteristics of my parents. My father was a leader of men in the military. My mother raised me in Christian Science religion. She was a very hopeful, spontaneous person with a great sense of humor. And I think I think we always inherit criteria from our families. And so I'd say the helpful part was always my parents were people who would help my friends and help others in the neighborhood. And so maybe that's what it came from. I don't know much about helping a lot of people. Most of the people I help are under arrest.
I'd say most of the people you represent are under arrest, but the vast majority of the people you help are not having a brush with the law.
Yeah.
You are listening to the Leaders and Legends podcast. We are with Jim Voyles and his co-author, Mark Bourcier. We're discussing his book, Jim's book, All Rise, My Life and Trials with the Famous, the Infamous, and the Misunderstood. The title of the podcast, or the name of the podcast, is Leaders and Legends. So let me give you a chance to talk about the current leadership at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It just seems to be perfect. a perfect storm of people who love sports, love racing, love the city, love the state, love the people who come there. What do you think of Mr. Penske and Mark Miles, Allison Millangton, obviously Doug Bowles?
Oh, yeah, I agree. Rogers had a passion for motorsports. He went to the first race in 51. He was 2 years ahead of me. And so I think he's always had the passion for motorsports. And of course, the pinnacle of motorsports is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And so that's clearly on display with him. Mark came from the tennis community and has affiliated himself with motorsports in an extremely wonderful way. And of course, I've known Doug since he was a young lawyer. I first met him when he worked for Steve Goldsmith, and he was responsible for us having the 16th Street Motor Speedway. It was put out by an RFP from the Goldsmith office of the mayor, and he was instrumental on Tony George and I and Dave Cassidy of obtaining the opportunity to run the 16th Street Speedway at the old Indians ballpark on 16th Street. And so that was a great opportunity. And I've known Alice Millangton, her husband put the air conditioning in our home when he was involved with that company. And so everybody there does have a love for the Speedway, a love for Indiana, and for motorsports, and it shows.
Speaking of smaller tracks that you've been involved with, all through my life growing up until I went to the Army in 87, on certain Friday and Saturday nights, there was a faint, sometimes not so faint noise coming from just east of Irvington where I grew up, and that was the Speedrome.
Been there.
It's one of your favorite places. You've told me before how much you really enjoy.
I love
Jacqueline loves it too, and her daughter does, but you just have a blast there.
Well, I kind of had a connection to it. Larry Curry, who was a mechanic at the Speedway, was a client of mine. But Larry, after he left working there at the Speedway, he got a job managing the Speedrome. And so, and another client of ours, Harding Paving, paved the track. And so I had a lot of opportunity to go out there and watch midget races, the figure eight races, and anything that would run, the jalopy races. I mean, whatever was running, I was watching.
I've been there one time in my entire life. I just turned 58 last week or a few weeks ago. And the person who took me there, Dick Guthrie.
Huh.
I'm sure you knew.
Sure I did. Yeah, he was at Stuart Irwin.
Yeah. His daughter and I graduated from high school together.
Yeah.
And we went out there, and he was by far the best dressed person I've ever seen at a track like that.
At the Speedrome.
But you were part of a group who saved the Speedrome.
Well, I don't know about saved. At that point, it was having trouble. And so I think it was important. It's a landmark as far as I'm concerned in motorsports here in the city. It goes way, way back to the origin of motorsports.
Are you a big fan of drag racing?
I became a big fan of drag racing only because of my client, Bill Simpson, who was immersed in the sport, got his start in the sport, and took me to a number of the finals out at Raceway Park. Do I follow it regularly? Yeah, kind of, only because another client of mine, Tony Stewart, is actively involved in that now. But as a kid, one of my close pals had the fastest car in Springfield, and so we would come back to watch the drags because of the proximity from Springfield and Indianapolis. But that was kind of I was more a circle track guy, dirt track and IndyCar guy, but I certainly paid attention because it was a great sport.
A few minutes ago, you were talking about being in the winner's podium, the 2025 Indianapolis 500. The look on your face, your expression completely changed. You became little Jimmy Voyles. When was your last, other than that, pinch yourself moment? I can't believe I'm at. Life and Trials with the Famous, the Infamous, and the Misunderstood.
I told people that anytime I go to a motorsport event, I have pretty close access now that I never had as a kid. Although my uncle would get me passes to certain things, I can now go in people's garages that I never could have before. I can walk around to the garage area, see people, enjoy things that I couldn't have before. And so every time I go, not to just the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but when I go to any racetrack and have that kind of accessibility, I've been to the Chili Bowl in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is getting ready to come here in January of 2026. And I had an opportunity to go into the pit area and see people and talk to other people. Those are the moments for me that I'd never got to before.
Mark, we're going to switch topics here to discuss Mr. Voyles' legal career. Anything you want to add about racing and how it has influenced, shaped, and really sort of brightened Jim's life? Because you must have spent hundreds of hours talking about it.
Yeah, one of the really interesting things, and he mentioned it earlier, I've run into Jim at little small dirt tracks here in Indiana, and you just mentioned the Speedrome. I mean, he's a guy who's, not just a big event, I'm going to go to the 500 kind of, quote, race fan, unquote. I mean, it's part of who he is. It was part of who he was when he was living in Springfield as a kid, going to the Illinois State Fairgrounds there, as well as Little Springfield Speedway. It was Springfield Speedway, but they called it Little Springfield to differentiate it between that and the mile at the fairgrounds. But I think it's deep enough in his blood that you can see how happy it makes him to be at a little place. So I'm with his grandson out at in Putnamville a couple of years ago at a sprint car race, and I think you mentioned this before. It's you're either in it or you're not in it. Maybe it's hard to find people who are sort of halfway in it, and he's all the way in it.
Do you agree with that, Mr. Voyles?
I agree.
We've talked a little bit about your career as an attorney. We're going to get back to that. I wanted to talk about racing first.
Well, that's okay. I like the sport.
Mostly because of the connection we made with my uncle. And I've been lucky enough to have Robin Miller on the podcast. He and Bill Benner came on together. That was a lot of fun. I've talked to Al Unser Jr., Johnny Rutherford, Tony Kanaan, who...
You're talking about a lot of my clients.
I was just going to say, as soon as I mentioned your name to Tony Kanaan, his face lit way up. He thinks the world of you, and it's pretty obvious all these folks do. You've come to them when they needed you.
I don't know about that. But as I said, it's my pleasure to be able to be close enough to get to know those people as friends, not just because somebody may need to talk to me about a legal matter, but because my interest is born by that, because I'm really interested in what they're doing, how they do their job, all those things that make motorsports to me a valuable interest.
My girlfriend Jacqueline who
I
just
do.
adores you. She turned 39 plus 1 in July of 2025. Present I got for her was a ride around the Speedway, the 2-seater ride.
Perfect.
My brother, who turned 65 today and has to retire, he's an airline pilot.
Got him a ride.
He got a ride a few years ago. My son, for his 18th birthday from Roncalli, or his graduation present from Roncalli, was a 2-seater ride. I know they're your client.
They are.
Have you done the 2-seater ride? Mark, have you done it?
I have not.
I have.
Let's chip in and get Mark a ride.
All he has to do is ask.
I just have never, it's not that I haven't had the opportunity. It's that the times when they've had rides for media people and all that set up, I was always in a different part of the racetrack chasing down a story or interviewing
We'll
somebody.
get a ride for him this year.
Absolutely. What was it like? Because not everyone listens to the podcast. I've never done it, but my son got out of it. He was 19. I'm thinking, no, he was 18. He was 18. He just graduated from Roncalli. He got out and he was a little dazed. And after he got his bearings, I just looked at him and he said, "That's the greatest thing ever in the history of my life. Nothing will beat that."
Well, it's interesting. I went with a friend of mine, Davey Hamilton drove, and I had driven before on my own short racing career. And the thing that struck me was this, not the speed, because speed doesn't really excite me that much, even though you're running 180. But what my thoughts were, remember that you're by yourself. You're not there with 32 other cars. And that's where it really becomes
Gets so close. It's just unreal when you watch it on television.
Yeah, and so that's the most interesting part of it, to think that those speeds, coupled with the closeness and danger that's lurking at every inch of that track. My son David calls it a badass track, and it is.
Yeah.
It is.
You've had a lot of famous clients in your profession as an attorney. I'll ask you about a few of those. But when you hear about something on television or you read about something, an incident, a problem, do you think to yourself, these guys are going to call me?
No, I really don't. As I've said before, this town is full of really, really fine lawyers, terrific lawyers. And my thinking is that whoever has a problem, they're going to reach out to a really fine lawyer, whether it's me or somebody else. But I said they're just lucky if something happens in this community that there's so many wonderful lawyers available.
Okay, point taken. But, and I know you can't discuss it, but Mark Sanchez has an issue in this city, former NFL quarterback, played at USC, and when it hit the paper or the news or the media that he had an issue in this city, I had 5 people within an hour text me and say, "Are you doing the PR for that? Because I know he's hiring Voyles."
Who are you mentioning?
Mr. Sanchez.
I don't know if I've heard of him.
You haven't? You haven't? He doesn't race. That's probably why you haven't heard of him. And he doesn't work at the Workingman's Friend.
That's true. That's true.
But when that hit the paper or the media, I had multiple people text me because of our association and say, "Are you going to do the PR for Sanchez? It's basically a matter of time before he hires Jim Voyles." That says something about you and your abilities.
Well, I was in London, England, in the Alex Palou trial.
You called me.
And so I didn't know about any of this. But somebody did ask me if I would help, and I agreed to help.
Is that a special bit of pressure when you are involved in something that's so public, so much scrutiny?
No, I don't think so. I try to treat every case like they're just that case. It's not who has done what or who has more publicity about them than other people, because whoever says somebody's a celebrity in some way is their opinion. All I'm doing is representing somebody who either involved in a legal matter that needs help. I mean, that's kind of the way I look at it.
You want to talk about Mike Tyson's case for a minute?
Who is this?
Mike Tyson. It's been a few decades ago, but he got in some trouble here in the Hoosier State. That part of your book, I thought you did a terrific job of explaining with the level of detail that you can, because obviously there's still confidentiality and that sort of thing issues. What was that experience like for you, in the sense, again, of just worldwide scrutiny, and it's happening here, and Pat Gifford, who I think was in your law school class or someone you knew in law school, is the judge, and Greg Garrison, who you'd known, and we love Greg Garrison, is the opposing counsel, and there's people from, super law firms from out east and this and that. You're just a country lawyer.
It's all I am, a simple country lawyer. No, It was a unique experience. Mike and I became friends over that whole mess that he had to go through. And so I think the relationship that he and I developed took it to a different level because I wasn't involved in any of the drama that was going around at the time. We didn't participate in any news conferences. We didn't do anything but go to court like I do all the time on other cases. And I work with people I hadn't worked with before, but I'm used to doing that. I knew Greg very well. He was my intern at one point.
I love that.
In life. And I certainly knew Judge Gifford. As I said, we were classmates, and I was, very enamored with her in terms of the way she ran that trial, in terms of how we were compared to the problems that California had with the O.J. Simpson trial, that she had it pretty shut down, that there weren't going to be any post-trial news conferences or daily conversations with the media. And so it was pretty much go to court, leave court, deal with the things that were going on every day. But I wasn't the trial lawyer, so it was a little different. I was, there to assist in any way I could, but I wasn't actually trying the case, which is a big difference.
Do you regret the verdict?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I don't think that was the correct verdict. And Greg and I have talked about it a million times. We have different points of view. He's still very confident that was the correct view, and I'm very confident it was the wrong verdict. But that case has been decided, so we can't change that.
And you have represented people who you are convinced are innocent, not guilty, and get convicted. What's it like walking out of the courtroom when you're just convinced that Chris Spangle is 100% innocent, should be acquitted, absolutely no doubt in your mind, and the jury goes the other way? How is that processed?
Most lawyers will tell you the worst kind of case to try is the case where you really believe deep down that your client's innocent. And so Tyson falls in that category for me, and I had a few in my lifetime, but those are the really difficult cases because everything that you're doing or not doing is scrutinized post-trial. Did I do the right thing? Did I do this? Did I do that? And so those are the most difficult cases to try.
Greg Garrison just retired, stepped down as Hamilton County prosecutor.
I went to his retirement party.
What are your thoughts on Mr. Garrison?
Well, we are we're close friends. We've always been close friends. Interestingly enough, his daughter, who was a senior at Lawrence North, and my daughter, who was a senior at Lawrence North, both came and watched the Tyson trial on the same day.
Really?
Yeah. But yeah, Greg has always been a close friend of mine. Philosophically, we're 100 miles apart.
Politically or legally?
Politically.
Right.
Legally, we're probably pretty close. But he has always been someone who I could talk to in a direct way, and he would respond in a direct way. We've traded jokes over the years. We would joke around in the restrooms during the Tyson trial, and he would laugh at me because I couldn't try the case, and I would laugh at him and yell at him because he was trying the case that I wanted to try. But yeah, Greg and I have had a fondness for each other for almost 50 years. So,
do you ever look at cases and you're not involved and you go, damn, I wish I had represented X?
No, I really don't. I try to avoid being somebody who critiques another lawyer who's trying a case. I'm not there. I don't know what's going on in the case. So I've always kind of tried to avoid that.
What's the most you've ever been fined for contempt?
Never.
Never.
Wait a minute. Don, the $20 back when I was a young lawyer, I was late to a case in Hamilton County, and Judge Folk fined me $20 and said he did it so he could get the Indianapolis lawyers to show up on time. That was it. Otherwise,
you've never
none.
been fined? You've never been held in contempt?
No. I might be contemptible, but I've never been held in contempt.
Is that rare? To go
Yeah.
to be a lawyer for 50 years and never be held in contempt?
No, I don't think it's rare. I think most lawyers respect the courts, respect our responsibilities, and don't go out of our way to create a contemptible situation.
Do you have a favorite movie about lawyers or the profession?
No, I really don't. I try not to watch a lot of that stuff. It's artificial. The lawyer that I probably respect more than anybody is Abraham Lincoln and what he did. And I've been in courtrooms where Lincoln, I went to Paris, Illinois, and Marshall, Illinois, where Lincoln actually tried a homicide case. And so those are the kind of people and I have been around some great lawyers. Racehorse Haynes from Texas. I was very fond of him. Jerry Spence was another terrific lawyer from Wyoming. And here in Indianapolis, Oni Mullen. When I was a young lawyer, we always used to watch Oni try his cases and always admired the work that he did as a lawyer. So,
are you always learning? I know you have to do, what the hell is it called? The
CLE.
But are you always like, hey, I remembered 10 years ago I asked the question this way and I wish I had asked it a different way, so now I've got a chance to...
Well, we're in a new era with the electronics. So the electronic discovery, there's all things that are changed. And so you have to look at cases. There are new tools that are available to us that weren't before. And so all that plays into your defense of somebody.
You write in your book, and I would imagine this is a question you get quite a bit, your opposition to the death penalty. I guess I can say I'm one of the few Republicans who are against the death penalty, not because I don't think people deserve it. Stephen Judy deserved the death penalty, Rezanover, the list goes on and on. What is it about? But it's the finality of...
Well, I think
the actual punishment that makes me hesitate a bit. What is it about the death penalty that makes you?
Well, I just think that we don't have the right to do that to people. And my feeling is that I would rather the person stay in a 6x8 cell the rest of his life than ever have the light of day. I don't want to end it too early for him. So that I just have always been, and I think 99% of most criminal defense lawyers are against the death penalty. We have a feeling about it. And I think once you've been in a case where the death penalty is an issue and you fight against it in every way that you can, put you back into that feeling about why would we do this to people. I can certainly understand the anger when someone loses a loved one in that way. But as my job as a defense lawyer, I can't be on that side and start feeling sympathy because that's not my role. My role is to defend to the best of my ability people who are charged with, and maybe I haven't tried a death penalty case or even had one assigned for years because we have special tools now in place for lawyers who have to do death penalty work. They have to have special training and to deal with a lot of the issues in those kinds of cases. So,
without quoting Shakespeare's Henry VI, what legal reforms, what criticisms of the legal profession do you think are the most valid?
I'm not sure because we have a unique community here in Indianapolis. And we have a wonderful relationship between the bar and the judiciary. I think we all work together to make the job that we do collectively better. And so I'm always for improving the product that we are involved in, but I think that is created by getting good judges, getting good lawyers, defending people in the right and respectful way, and having jurors, people from the community, proceed to agree with us and participate. Getting good jurors is hard. I mean, people don't necessarily want to serve on juries. They have 100 excuses. But once they do, and I've talked to jurors who've sat on cases, not just my case, but cases where they relish the experience because they got to look at our system of justice, which is the best in the world, up close as a participant. So,
Is there a case that you didn't take that we would have heard of? You discussed a little bit of the Speedway, or not the Speedway. You did not represent Brett Kimberlin. Is that correct? Or
I did not.
You did not.
Rick Hammond did.
Okay. You mentioned in your book the Marjorie Jackson case, the money. Did you have a chance to represent Karitzis?
Later in life, long after his Richard Hunt episode, where he was found not guilty by reason of insanity, on a separate matter, he came to my office and I represented him on a very much smaller matter, a unique character.
I had Richard Hall on my podcast, his kidnap victim, and there's a new documentary, a docudrama out about that. I'm hoping to have the producers to come on to discuss. But that was big. That was February of 78, I think, or 77. You had but you didn't have a chance to represent him. Is there anyone else a famous case where you just said, "No, I just don't want to do it"?
I've not represented lots of people, but I don't know of any case that someone said that they wanted to have me represent them and I refused them. I don't remember that.
Is it because you have the energy, you have the fight for the innocent, that you could have retired years and years ago, and here you are, still at it?
It's not that. I just like what I do. Here I'm 83 in about 5 days, and I get to go to a wonderful office, work with wonderful people, try interesting cases before interesting judges and talented people. And so it beats walking the mall. I'd rather do this right now until I'm not capable of doing it. And Joan said she will make sure that I don't do it when she thinks I'm not capable of doing it.
Subtitle of your book is My Life and Trials with the Famous, the Infamous, and the Misunderstood. Who was misunderstood?
You, for one.
But you never charged me.
No, I didn't. Everybody who's not famous or infamous.
And why are they misunderstood? Do you think people have a hard time dealing with, you said it's the best legal system in the world, but when you're even on the periphery of it, or you think you're going to have to testify. I've had to testify at trials. It's nerve-wracking.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Anytime you're in a legal matter, whether you're a witness, a juror, a judge, a lawyer, a defendant, a prosecutor, you always have a heightened sense of what you're doing is very, very important to everybody.
And does the racing world and the legal world, it intersects for you in a way that you could have predicted decades ago?
No, I don't think so. I mean, my access to the racing world, I would never have felt would have been the way it is now, that I can go pretty much anywhere within a racing community and know people and participate and enjoy. Because I still see myself as an outsider hanging on the fence, watching the race. And I'll do that if I don't know anybody or I'm at a track, because it's the thrill of watching somebody do something that I can't do or haven't done is still very exciting to me.
But you've represented racers.
I have.
race team owners,
I have.
track owners.
I have.
In that way that it intersects, simple country lawyer ain't who they're looking for. They want
Well-
someone to fight for them because they know that what they do is going to become public and scrutinized in a way that it's just not going to be for someone like me.
I have a strong interest in the Sixth Amendment and people's right to counsel. And so in order to do that, I have a responsibility to do everything I can on behalf of that individual to help him through that dilemma, whatever it is.
Speaking of people you have represented who passed away this year, and that's Jim Voyles. His contribution to the city's often overlooked.
Oh, Jim was one of the most generous and wonderful people that I've gotten to know in my life, and extremely kind to me. I'll give you a little example. The guy that's the head of his organization, Pete Ward,
They talk about phenomenal leaders.
Is a close friend of mine, lives in Zionsville, and Pete, it was before the Indianapolis 500, probably 4 to 5 years ago. Pete calls me and said, "Are you going to be home?" And I said, "Yeah, we have some guests that are here for the race." He said, "I'm going to stop by." And he did on the night before the race. And he handed me a Super Bowl ring that Jim wanted me to have. It's engraved with my name on it. It's a duplicate of the Super Bowl ring that they won in 2006. And so that was just kind of the way that Jim was able to thank me for things that he asked me to do, and I tried to do it the best of my ability for him. But he's just that kind of person. I watched him a lot of times when I would go to training camp, and he'd be there. He would like to meet and talk to people and be kind to people. So those are the kind of things that I would see about Jim Voyles that were endearing to me about him.
Did you get a little bit of a chuckle when the Voyles family and the Foyt family became one?
Yeah, I know Anthony, and I've known Anthony in both his categories, both as a race driver and grandson of AJ, as well as his now married to one of Jim's daughters. And so he's developed into a wonderful young man and with a great family. He has 5 children and does a good job for that family.
Last question before we get to the 5 questions, and I hope, Mark, you will participate in our 5 questions.
She did.
You go out of your way in your book, and I know some of them, Jennifer Lukemeyer, Angie Mahone, who's just about as awesome as her husband. It's real close.
It's very close.
And the people at the Friend, the Workingman's Friend, you go out of your way in your book. You could tell all these celebrity stories if you wanted to, but that's not who you are. You talk about the folks that you work with and see every day. We all get a kick out of watching you stroll in the Workingman's Friend with your cufflinks. And
that's the only way I can't button my shirt. So.
Someone will say, "Which one's Jim Voyles?" I go, "Look for the cufflinks." Why do you enjoy that place so much? Why? And I know it's your personality. I know it's who you are, but you do a lot of praising of the people you work with every day. Why was that important to you?
If you didn't recognize the people you work with, then you're kind of a snob that I don't like, a person like that. We don't do this job alone. Angie makes appointments. She cajoles people. People who are having a bad day, she takes care of them. Nancy Potter, who was my secretary for 42 years, did the same thing. Connie Ebinger, Teresa Short, my CFO, our 3 great investigators, Terry Judy, Bill McAllister, Tim Green, Doug Coons, Pat Hinkle. I mean, all these people work together. It's like a pit crew. I mean, if you didn't recognize the head mechanic or the pit crew, and Ganassi just said it's all me, it doesn't go very far. And so if you don't recognize the people that make your life easier, who help you get through the day, who encourage you, who do all kinds of things to make you a success, well, you're not much of a person, period, in my mind. So,
When's the first time you went to the Workingman's Friend?
holy cow. Lincoln and I shared a sandwich.
Yeah.
Uh,
Benjamin
no,
Lincoln?
Yeah, Benjamin Lincoln. No, well, her mother, Becky's mother, Becky who runs it now,
Right.
Becky's mother and I knew each other because I was going here then. I went to her mother's funeral. And so, yeah, I mean, it endears itself to me because I had a place in Springfield, Illinois named Don's Drive-In, which was a great hamburger place that we all carried our
Right.
hamburgers out and drove our cars around and had a wonderful time. And it's kind of a carryover for me to go to a hamburger place of that kind of mystique that still has it. It's in not a most savory part of town. They got Washington Street torn up so you can't get there. You got to go through 10th and then to Belmont, but it's worth every minute that you go there.
The food is as advertised.
Not as good as the Golden Ace, but
The Golden Ace, of course, is on the east side, so it's automatically better.
that's great. You have one on one side of town and one on the other.
Amazing places.
Yeah,
Amazing.
They really are.
We've reached the point on the Leaders and Legends podcast where we ask the same, in this case, 6 questions of our guests. Mr. Voyles, Mark, are you ready, sir?
Sure am.
We'll start with you, Mark, for the answers on all these questions. What was your first car?
1969 Chevelle.
Ooh.
Vinyl top, blue. Bought it from the prettiest girl in town.
Me? 49 Ford. Paid $50 for it. Didn't have a floorboard.
You still have
painted
it?
the dash with the spray paint.
Did you ever go back and buy it or buy one just like it?
No. Oh, well, you know what? I went to an auction at the Hoosier Dome years ago, and I bought one, a 49 Ford. I took it home. We never did anything with it. I sold it. It wasn't the same.
Mark, what was your first job?
Pumped gas as a kid and then started writing as soon as I got out of high school. So I had very few real jobs. It's mostly been writing, but I pumped gas like every young kid did back then.
Yeah.
And to me, it was the greatest job in the world for a young guy because you had to learn people skills, not to the same degree that Jim's profession is this way, but you ended up encountering a lot of people having bad days.
Yeah.
They get off the highway, they're out of gas, they've been in traffic or whatever, and it was good education for a kid.
My first job that I remember was working the riprap on Lake Springfield, busting rocks with other guys playing football, throwing them there and building up the sides of the lake. Then I went to work for the highway department, and I would pick up, we were on the striper crew that would put the yellow stripes in the middle of the road, and we would put down the cones and pick them up. Those are kind of my first 2
Hot days.
Best of the line.
What was your first concert, Mark?
First got Frank Sinatra, believe it or not. I was going with an Italian girl. Her parents were huge Sinatra fans. It had to be somewhere around 82. I don't think I'd gone anything before that. And it was memorable because, you walk into a room and there's Frank Sinatra. The room might be a civic center, but you realize that you're in the same room as that guy. There are very few people, I think, in entertainment who had that level of that command of a room that he had.
Chris, I don't think we've had Sinatra as an answer. I can't think of anyone.
True
That'd
story.
be a phenomenal first concert.
I left the girl way behind, but I remember the concert pretty well.
Jim?
My first concert that I remember, Stan Getz at when I was in college as my sophomore year in college. He played the concert at McMurray, which was the adjacent college where I went at Illinois College. And I took the girl who became my first wife, Nancy, to that concert. That's one I remember.
Someone else you speak very highly of in your book. Your first wife, Nancy.
Correct, Nancy. Yeah, my mother, 2 of my children.
Mark, if you could suggest any book for someone to read, which book would you choose?
Any of mine, you mean, or any book in
Any
general?
book ever.
Oh boy,
Which means it can be one of yours.
I love a good novel, so maybe Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. A great old Western novel. It's 600 or 700 pages long. It'll take you a while, but it was later made into a TV miniseries that everybody saw. But phenomenal piece of writing.
Mr. Voyles?
I really like Doris Kearns' Team of Rivals. When Lincoln became president, he appointed cabinet members that were rivals of his for the presidency of the opposing parties. And I always thought that was a wonderful way to deal with a contentious problem.
Mark, if you could witness any event in history, be there in person as it happens, which event would you choose?
Oh, as a racing guy, there were probably different 500s that I'd go to see. Maybe, the race that Jim talks about in 53, his first live race, won by Bill Vukovich, was the hottest day in history, hottest 500 in history to that point. And I have a great affection for that era. It was all before I was born, but most of the guys who raced in those events back then were guys who'd raced at Saturday night local tracks all over the country. So it's an era I'm very fond of, and it would be a 500 from that era, and it might be the 53 race.
Jim?
An event that
Any event in history.
I would think I would like to have been. It's more not an event, but it's something I would have liked to have done. I would like to have had a evening with Abraham Lincoln to really understand what he went through with the war, what he did as a lawyer, because I really admired. I mean, I grew up in Springfield pretty much, and so I got enamored with Lincoln history. I've been to his house.
His house is a neat place to go to.
Yeah, he has a law office there, is still there with his partner, Herndon. And so if it had to be an event, I would like to create that event.
One of the most popular answers is to be there on November 19th, 1863, when he delivers the Gettysburg Address. That's a popular one.
Sure.
Kind of dovetails with what you're saying. Last question. Mark, if you could have dinner with anyone living today, 2 hours off the record just to chat. That's a great question for a journalist. Just to chat, whom would you choose? Living today.
Right now, living. That's a hard one. I mean, there's so many people who have passed that you'd automatically think of. Jim Voyles is a good guy to have dinner with.
Yeah, but you have to try wrestling for the check, and you always lose.
I'm sure there are. Had I known that, I could have come up with a better answer coming in. But there are a lot of great writers I admire. Some who are still here, some who aren't. I'll go with Jim Voyles just because he's here.
He is a hell of a dining companion, that's for sure.
Oh, my God.
Mr. Voyles, if you could have dinner with anyone living today, 2 hours off the record, so you can't say Lincoln. Don't come up with one of your Lincoln answers.
No, I won't.
Whom would you choose?
Trying to think. Living today. That's really hard. I would think that I'd like to have dinner with Netanyahu only because I'm interested in this conflict that's going on in the Middle East, to try to have a perspective from him about the decisions he's made over Gaza, the other things that I'd like to cross-examine him about, to get some answers that don't seem to come for these public press conferences they held. So that's what I'd be
You ever
interested.
felt sorry for anyone that you've cross-examined and caught or made look foolish?
No, I haven't felt sorry for them. I'm just doing my job and trying to ferret out the truth as best I can based upon what they've said before or what they're attempting to say now. No, I haven't felt sorry for them. I'm disappointed more than anything else if people get up on the witness stand and tell a story that is not true, or that they embellish, or they just misrepresent facts. I'm embarrassed for them. And, Wigmore said, a great student of evidence in this country, that the best tool ever invented for truth is the cross-examination, is a chance to ask people to clarify their answers about all kinds of things. And so I'm not embarrassed by it.
You have been listening to Leaders and Legends, a podcast presented by Veteran Strategies, an Indiana-based public relations enterprise. We are also a federally certified, veteran-owned small business. Mark, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you. It's been great.
Your book, that I know you had a little bit of hand in writing, is a terrific read. I enjoyed every word of it. And it's really, quite candidly, most of the stuff I read about or whatever happens hundreds of years ago. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
The book is titled, All Rise, My Life and Trials with the Famous, the Infamous, and the Misunderstood. It's the author, Jim Voyles. May I just say, on behalf of the famous, the infamous, the misunderstood, the Republicans, the Democrats, and
the independents,
and the people at the Ace, and the people at Elmo's, and the people at the Friend, Jim. We just love you.
Well,
and we're so grateful for your friendship and so much. You've done so much for so many. Reading about your life in more detail was a terrific, terrific experience. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for asking me.
Thank you very much for listening to Leaders and Legends, brought to you by Veteran Strategies Incorporated. If you want to contact us about this program or our menu of public relations services, please send us an email at robert@veteranstrategies.com. That's robert@veteranstrategies.com.